back, everybody, for another deep dive with us.
Always a pleasure to be back.
Over the last couple deep dives, we've really dug into the lives of James Campbell Sr.
That's right.
and his brothers, Thomas and John and Hugh.
Yeah.
But for this deep dive, we're going to kind of turn the page to the next chapter, so to speak, in his family saga.
Right.
And really focus on James Campbell Jr. and his descendants.
Yeah, it's like stepping into a time machine in a way.
It really is.
Going back to the late 1700s, early 1800s, a time of revolution and westward expansion and really the birth of a nation.
Absolutely.
And we're going to see how James Campbell Jr. and his family navigated this really, turbulent period in American history.
And from what I've seen in these sources, Campbell family migration from Maryland to Tennessee and Virginia, and James Campbell. Virginia to Tennessee family history.
Right.
It sounds like it wasn't exactly a straightforward journey for them.
No, it wasn't. And right off the bat, we kind of encounter a little bit of a genealogical mystery.
Oh, how so?
Well, putting together historical records from this era, it can often feel like you're assembling a puzzle where some of the pieces are missing.
Right.
And when it comes to James Campbell Jr.'s birth, the exact date and location, they remain a little uncertain.
So how do we even begin to unravel his story then if we have these gaps in the information?
Well, that's where the detective work comes in. We have to really rely on the clues that we do have and see where they lead us. And both of these sources suggest that James Jr.'s father, also named James, owned land in what would become Lee County, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
And this really places our story right on the edge of the frontier where land ownership wasn't just about, property. It was a symbol of opportunity. It was a symbol of security. It was even a symbol of status.
And speaking of status, what about James Jr.'s wife, Mary Taylor?
Mary. Even her maiden name is a source of debate among researchers, which, just goes to show you how much careful analysis and cross-referencing is needed when you're doing this kind of genealogical research.
Right.
But what we do know is that they were married around 1772.
Okay.
And their lives intertwine with a very fascinating location, Cecil County, Maryland.
Okay, so now we're moving from Virginia to Maryland.
That's right. Think of it as following their footsteps across the map.
Okay.
In Cecil County, we find records from St. Mary Ann's Episcopal Church.
Okay.
And this is where James Jr. held the position of vestryman.
Oh, wow.
And that wasn't just like an honorary title.
Right.
He was responsible for managing church affairs and finances.
Okay.
Indicating that he had a certain level of standing within the community.
Right.
But even more importantly for us, this church is where the births of several of James Jr. and Mary's children were recorded.
Oh, wow.
And these are crucial pieces of evidence for tracing their lineage.
It's like those church records are time capsules, offering us these little glimpses into their lives.
Exactly. And speaking of precious glimpses, we can't overlook the will of Mary's father, Matthew Taylor.
Right.
And this document does a couple of things for us. Not only does it strengthen the link between James Jr. and Mary, but it also reveals a little bit about, the social and economic landscape of the time.
Okay.
So Matthew Taylor's will specifically allocates sums of money to his daughters, including Mary,
Right.
Suggesting that he had a certain level of wealth and also a concern for their well-being.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these legal documents can just suddenly come alive with these personal details.
They really can.
But we can't forget the backdrop of all of this.
No.
The Revolutionary War was raging during this period.
Absolutely.
Did that conflict touch the lives of James Jr. and his family?
It most certainly did. We know that we have records indicating that James Jr. swore an oath of allegiance to Maryland. Imagine what it must have been like to live through that era.
Yeah.
Navigating the complexities of loyalties.
Right.
Potentially facing divisions even within your own community. The fight for independence came with personal sacrifices and uncertainties that we can only begin to grasp today.
It really makes you realize that these weren't just, these abstract historical events. These were real-life experiences that were shaping the course of people's lives.
Absolutely.
But speaking of shaping lives, I understand that the Campbell family didn't stay put in Maryland for long.
That's right. Around 1787, they packed up and moved from Maryland to Virginia. Now, imagine undertaking that journey in the late 18th century.
Oh, my gosh.
No cars, no planes, just sheer determination to build a new life. It really speaks volumes about their resilience, their adaptability.
What prompted this move, especially considering they'd already kind of established themselves in Maryland?
Well, there are a few possible explanations. The death of Mary's father might have been a factor, as families often moved closer to support one another after a loss.
Right.
Plus, opportunities for land acquisition were constantly shifting on the frontier, so perhaps Virginia offered prospects that Maryland didn't.
So they settle in Virginia. But it's not all smooth sailing, right?
It's not.
I understand that James Jr. had a little bit of a run-in with the authorities over his taxable property.
He did indeed. We have this record of a court presentment against him for failing to provide a list of his taxable property.
Wow.
Now, this incident, it gives us a peek into the evolving systems of governance and taxation in early America. Even on the frontier, there was this growing sense of order, rules and regulations being established to manage these burgeoning communities.
And taxation, of course, was essential for funding the government and all its services. But it seems like James Jr. had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, though. I read that he purchased land and he even set up a still house.
That's right. In 1794, he acquires land near his father's property and establishes a still house, likely producing whiskey.
Whoa, wow.
And whiskey production, it was a huge industry in the early U.S., playing a significant role in the economy, even shaping political discourse. I mean, it's not a stretch to think that maybe James Jr.'s still house could have even contributed to the infamous Whiskey Rebellion.
Oh, wow. Talk about a connection to a pivotal moment in American history.
It really is.
But just as they're kind of getting established in Virginia, it seems like that spirit of westward expansion pulls them in another direction.
It does. In 1807, the family heads southwest to Warren County, Tennessee.
Okay.
And this move coincides with the signing of the Treaty of Tellico.
Okay.
Now, this treaty opened up vast new lands for settlement, triggering this wave of migration westward. And the Campbell family was swept up in this tide of opportunity seekers.
So they trade the familiar landscapes of Virginia for the untamed wilderness of Tennessee. It's hard to even fathom the scale of that kind of change back then.
It is. Imagine the logistical challenges.
Oh, my gosh. But what about James Jr. himself? Do we know what became of him after this move to Tennessee?
Well, that's where the trail gets a bit murky. After 1812, James Jr. disappears from the records. The exact circumstances of his death remain a mystery.
Oh, wow.
Adding another layer of intrigue to his story. It's a reminder that historical research is often a process of just piecing together fragments and accepting that some questions may never be fully answered.
It's like we've reached a cliffhanger in this family saga.
It really is.
But the story doesn't end there, right?
No, it doesn't.
What about the children of James Jr. and Mary?
Right.
Did they continue to spread out across this expanding nation?
They did indeed. And their stories offer a window into the diverse paths families took during this era.
Okay.
Some staying closer to their roots, while others ventured even further into the unknown.
Well, I am already hooked. It seems like this family's story is a microcosm of early American history.
Absolutely.
Filled with adventure, resilience, and this relentless pursuit of new horizons.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to uncover what happens next.
Stay tuned because the journey's far from over.
All right, so we've left James Campbell Jr.'s fate kind of shrouded in a bit of mystery.
Yeah.
But his legacy lives on through his children.
Right.
What can you tell us about their individual journeys?
Yeah.
And how they reflect the broader trends of this era?
Well, what's really fascinating is how their paths diverge, almost like a branching tree, symbolizing the expansion of the nation itself.
Right.
Some stay closer to their roots in Virginia, while others really embrace that spirit of westward movement,
right,
pushing further and further into uncharted territory.
It's almost like they embody that sense of restless energy that defined early America, always seeking new opportunities, new horizons.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do we even begin with their stories?
Well, let's start with Joseph, one of their sons, who was born in Maryland in 1773. He followed that westward tide that we talked about earlier, settling in Lincoln County, Tennessee.
Okay.
Tragically, his story ends abruptly. He and his brother-in-law were killed in 1826. Oh, wow.
Highlighting the very real dangers and hardships of life on the frontier.
Yeah.
It wasn't all romanticized exploration. There were genuine dangers to contend with.
It's a stark reminder that for every, success story, there were countless others who faced heartbreak and hardship.
Absolutely.
Makes you really appreciate the resilience of these families. They persevered despite facing unimaginable loss and uncertainty.
Absolutely. And amidst these challenges, there were also these incredible stories of triumph and community building.
Okay.
Take John, another son, born in 1775. He makes his way to Hempstead County, Arkansas, further illustrating that westward reach of the Campbell family.
Yeah, it's like they were tracing the expanding map of the nation with their own footsteps.
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't just John. Matthew, born in 1780, ended up in Union County, Arkansas.
Right.
Adding another branch to this sprawling family tree.
Yeah. What do you think drove them to keep moving westward? Was it purely about economic opportunity?
Right.
Or was there something more at play?
Well, while economic opportunity was undoubtedly a factor, I think it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
Imagine that lure of vast unclaimed land.
Yeah.
The chance to build a life free from the constraints of established communities.
Right.
And perhaps even, a sense of adventure that just ran in their blood. It's like they inherited that pioneering spirit from their parents, who themselves had made that daring move from Maryland to Virginia.
It makes you wonder if it was like this conscious decision or if it just felt like the natural progression of things, given the context of the times, like westward expansion was happening all around them, and they simply became part of that larger movement.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of both. Individual agency and these broader forces of history were at play, shaping their decisions and influencing their destinies. But, amidst all this talk of expansion and opportunity, we have to remember these were real people with hopes and dreams and anxieties. They weren't just pawns on a historical chessboard.
That's such an important point. It's so easy to get caught up in those grand narratives.
Yeah.
But we can't forget the human element at the heart of it all.
Absolutely.
These were families forging lives for themselves in a new and often very unpredictable land.
Right. And their stories, while interconnected, were also unique and deeply personal. For instance, their daughter Mary, born in 1782, finds herself in Brown County, Indiana.
Okay.
And what strikes me about her story is her longevity. She lived to be 91, passing away in 1873.
Wow.
Imagine the changes she witnessed over the course of her lifetime. Yeah. From the birth of a nation to the Industrial Revolution, she lived through some of the most transformative periods in American history.
That's incredible. To think of the stories she could have told, the events she witnessed firsthand.
It really is.
It's like a living link to a bygone era.
Right.
What about the other daughters?
Yeah.
Did their journeys take them as far west?
Oh, absolutely. Ruth, another daughter, settled in Llano, Texas.
Wow.
Can you imagine what Texas must have been like in the 1800s?
Oh, my gosh.
During its transition from a Spanish colony to an independent republic and then eventually a state within the U.S., she would witness a period of immense political and social upheaval.
It sounds like her life story could be a history book in itself.
Absolutely.
And then there's Susanna, the youngest daughter born in Virginia in 1789.
Right.
Her path led her to Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Yes.
A region so deeply entangled with the complexities of westward expansion, race, and slavery.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how their individual stories weave together to create this intricate tapestry of family history, mirroring the complexities and contradictions of the nation itself.
It really is a testament to the diversity of experiences within a single family.
Yeah.
And it highlights how even those who shared the same starting point could end up on such vastly different trajectories.
It makes you realize that there's no single monolithic narrative of westward expansion.
Right.
It was this multifaceted process shaped by countless individual decisions and circumstances. And I imagine it wasn't always this smooth or straightforward path, especially for women in that era.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Women faced unique challenges and often had very limited agency compared to their male counterparts.
Right.
Their stories are often overlooked in the grand narratives of history, but they played a vital role in shaping the social and cultural landscape of the expanding nation.
Right.
So while we might not have all the details of their lives, it's important to acknowledge their resilience, their contributions.
Absolutely.
And the ways in which they navigated the complexities of their time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a reminder to dig deeper, to look beyond those surface-level narratives and try to understand those individual experiences that shaped the course of history.
Right.
And speaking of digging deeper, didn't we mention a rather intriguing legal dispute involving one of James Campbell Jr.'s descendants?
Yes.
a lawsuit that sheds light on family dynamics and land ownership in Lee County, Virginia.
Ah, yes. The 1857 lawsuit involving James Campbell III,
right,
the grandson of James Sr. and his siblings.
Okay.
It's a fascinating case that really reveals how inheritance disputes, particularly those involving land,
right,
could create these rifts within families and drag on for years.
Oh, wow.
Within the legal system.
It sounds like we're about to dive into the legal drama of the Campbell family.
We are.
Before we do, I'd love to just hear your thoughts on what we've uncovered so far.
Yeah.
About James Jr.'s children and their westward journeys.
Right.
What stands out to you as particularly significant or surprising?
You know, what strikes me the most is just the sheer geographical scope of their movement.
Yeah.
You know, from Maryland to Virginia, then fanning out to Tennessee, Arkansas, Indiana, Texas, Alabama.
Right.
It's really a testament to the dynamism and the restlessness of this era. They weren't content to stay put. They were driven by this desire for something more.
Yeah.
Whether it was economic opportunity, personal freedom, or simply the thrill of the unknown.
Yeah, and it's not just about the physical distances they covered. It's about the cultural and social transformations they must have encountered.
Oh, absolutely.
Along the way.
Yeah.
You know, they were adapting to new environments, new communities, new ways of life.
Exactly. Their stories highlight those complexities of assimilation and acculturation, the challenges of maintaining family ties across vast distances,
Right.
and the ways in which their identities were shaped by the evolving landscape of the nation.
It's a microcosm of the American experience itself.
Yeah.
You know, a story of constant movement, adaptation, reinvention.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a reminder that history isn't just about, dates and battles.
Right.
It's about the personal journeys of individuals and families navigating the tides of change.
Yeah.
And in the case of the Campbell family, their story is far from over.
No, it isn't.
We still have that intriguing lawsuit to unpack.
Right.
And I'm sure it holds more than a few surprises.
It does. You know, legal documents like this offer such a unique glimpse into the social and economic fabric of the past. They reveal not only the legal issues at stake, but also the underlying values, beliefs, and even the power dynamics of a community.
So let's delve into this 1857 lawsuit and see what secrets it unlocks about the Campbell family, their legacy, and the enduring power of land ownership in shaping the American experience. Okay, so let's rewind back to Lee County, Virginia, where we left off. This 1857 lawsuit you mentioned. What exactly was it about, and who were the players involved?
Well, at the heart of the matter, it's a land dispute.
Okay.
James Campbell III, remember, he's the grandson of James Sr.,
Right.
finds himself at odds with his own siblings over how their ancestral land should be divided.
Okay.
And this is a scenario that, played out countless times in early America, especially as families grew and land became increasingly scarce and valuable.
So it's not just some dry legal case. It's family drama with real stakes, right?
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder what James Jr. and Mary Taylor would have thought, seeing their descendants battling it out over their legacy like this.
Yeah, it really humanizes the story, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
But beyond the emotional aspect, this lawsuit is like a gold mine of information for researchers.
Oh, okay.
These legal documents, they often meticulously outline family relationships, birth dates, places of residence, even occupations. It's like this window into their world, revealing details that, might have been lost to time otherwise.
It almost sounds like these legal battles, while messy, inadvertently became this form of record keeping that benefits us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And this particular case really helps us trace the Campbell lineage with greater accuracy.
Okay.
Remember how we mentioned earlier the uncertainty surrounding Mary Taylor's maiden name?
Right.
Well, this lawsuit helps solidify her connection to the Taylor family.
Okay.
Adding another piece to the puzzle.
It's amazing how these seemingly unrelated events can just connect in these unexpected ways.
Right.
Shedding light on the past.
Yeah.
I have to admit, when we started this deep dive, I wasn't sure what to expect, but tracing the Campbell family from that small church in Cecil County, Maryland, all the way to the expanding frontiers of Virginia, Tennessee, and beyond. It's really been quite a journey.
It really has, and it underscores how, individual lives intertwine with these broader currents of history.
Right.
I mean, we've seen how the Campbell family navigated revolutions, migrations, economic booms, personal tragedies. Their story really is a microcosm of the American experience.
We started with James Campbell Jr., a man whose early life remains shrouded in mystery.
Right.
But through meticulous research, a little bit of detective work, we've uncovered a story filled with adventure, resilience, and the enduring power of family ties.
Absolutely. And while we may never know all the details of their lives,
right,
the fragments that we've gathered really paint this vivid picture of what it meant to be a part of a pioneering family on the American frontier.
Yeah.
Their challenges and their triumphs remind us that history isn't just about dates and events. It's about the human stories that shape our understanding of the past.
Beautifully said. So for our listeners out there who are maybe feeling inspired to dive deeper into their own family histories, what advice would you give them? Where do they even begin?
Well, I would say start with what you know. Talk to family members, gather those old photographs and documents, see what stories they can tell. Online resources like genealogy websites and digital archives are just invaluable tools for expanding your research. And don't be afraid to embrace the detective work. Sometimes, the most rewarding discoveries come from piecing together those seemingly unrelated clues.
Yeah, and remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
You might encounter some roadblocks, some dead ends along the way, but that's part of the process.
Absolutely.
The thrill of uncovering a long-lost ancestor or a forgotten chapter in your family's story makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, and who knows, you might just discover connections that you never even knew existed.
Yeah.
Linking you to people and places that played a pivotal role in shaping who you are today.
For those of you who are eager to delve further into the Campbell family saga, I highly recommend checking out those two sources that we've been exploring today. Campbell Family Migration, from Maryland to Tennessee and Virginia, and James Campbell, Virginia to Tennessee family history. They're packed with fascinating details that will keep you turning the pages.
Happy researching, everyone. And remember, history's a living thing. It's constantly being reshaped and reinterpreted as we uncover new evidence and new perspectives. So keep asking questions, keep digging, and most importantly, keep sharing those stories.
Beautifully put. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.